I want to tell you about the phone call that cost me $25,000. It came on a Wednesday morning. My mother's voice, not her usual voice, the thinner version, the one she used when something was genuinely wrong, which was not often and which I had learned over 30 years to take seriously. "Emily," she said, "your father is in the hospital." Everything after that moved quickly, the way emergencies move, fast and blurred and full of information that you absorb without fully processing, because processing takes time you don't feel like you have. Cardiac event, serious but stable, surgery recommended, the insurance covered part of it. There was a gap, a significant one. They needed help covering it quickly because the surgery had to be scheduled within the week. "How much?" I asked. She told me, $25,000. I did not hesitate. I want to tell you something about who I am. I am not a wealthy person. I am a person who has worked hard, lived carefully, and saved over many years with the specific discipline of someone who grew up watching money be scarce and decided early that scarcity was not going to define her adult life. $25,000 was my emergency fund, the one I had built over 6 years, the one that was supposed to be there for my emergencies. I transferred it on a Thursday morning because my father was in the hospital and my mother's voice was Finn, and I did not hesitate. That is what love looks like, sometimes.
My father came home from the hospital 10 days later. I called to check in on him. He sounded fine. Better than fine, actually. The specific energy of a man who has had a health scare and come through it, and is now perhaps slightly overestimating his recovery. I was relieved, genuinely. I asked about the surgery. He gave me some information, vague, less detailed than I had expected, but he had always been a private person about medical things, and I did not push. I asked my mother how they were managing. "We're fine," she said. "We're managing." "The bills." "It's being handled," she said. "Thank you, Emily. We couldn't have done this without you." I said, "Of course," and I went back to my life, and I did not think about it again for 3 weeks. Until I saw the post. My brother Marcus posted it on a Saturday morning. Instagram. A photograph. A new car, dark blue, expensive, the specific kind of car that announces itself as a statement rather than transportation. The caption, "Treated myself. Life is short." I stared at the screen for a long time. Life is short. 3 weeks after my parents had called me to say my father was in the hospital and they needed $25,000 for his surgery. Life is short. Marcus had treated himself to a car. I did not react immediately. I am not a person who reacts immediately to things that require thought. I set my phone down, made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and thought, where had Marcus gotten the money for that car? This was the question. Not because I begrudged my brother a car, not because I tracked his finances, but because Marcus had, for the 3 years I was aware of, been in the specific financial situation of a person who was covering his expenses and not much more. He had mentioned money being tight the previous Christmas. He had asked to borrow $300. $300. And now he had a car. A specific kind of car that had a specific kind of price tag. I called my friend Dana, not because I needed advice, because I needed to say the thing out loud before I could decide what to do with it. "Marcus posted a new car," I said. "What kind?" Dana asked. I described it. Silence. "Emily," she said carefully, "when did you give your parents the money?" 3 weeks ago, I said. More silence. "Dana," I said, "say what you're thinking." "I'm thinking," she said, "that the timing is very specific." "Yes," I said. "And I'm thinking," she said, "that you need to find out what the money was actually used for before you do anything else." "Yes," I said. "How are you going to do that?" she asked. I thought about this.
I'm going to call the hospital, I said. I called the hospital the following Monday. I had my father's name, the approximate date of his admission. I identified myself as a family member who had contributed to the medical costs and was following up on the account. The billing department was helpful, perhaps more helpful than my parents had anticipated. I'm showing an account for that patient. The balance was covered by insurance. There was no outstanding amount. I'm sorry, I said. Can you repeat that? The insurance covered the full cost, she said. There was no gap payment required. I thanked her, hung up, sat very still. No gap, no $25,000 shortfall. The insurance had covered everything. My parents had called me to say there was a gap. There was no gap, which meant $25,000 had gone somewhere else entirely.
I called Dana back. The insurance covered everything, I said. There was no gap. The silence that followed was the specific silence of a friend who has just understood something and is deciding how to respond. Emily, she said. I know, I said. Your parents? I know, I said. And Marcus? I know, I said. What are you going to do? I thought about $25,000, 6 years of careful saving, my emergency fund, given in good faith in under 24 hours because my mother's voice was thin and my father was in the hospital and I had not hesitated. What was I going to do? I'm going to find out everything, I said, before I say a word to anyone. I spent a week finding out everything. Not dramatically, not with private investigators or legal proceedings, simply, carefully, methodically, the way you do when you are building a picture and you want to be certain before you act. I spoke to my aunt, my father's sister, who mentioned casually that Marcus had been talking about a new car for months, that he had been expecting some money to come through. Expecting. I spoke to a cousin who mentioned that Marcus and my parents had been having regular dinners during the 3 weeks of my father's supposed recovery. Private dinners, the kind not mentioned in family group chats. I pulled the bank transfer records from my end. The $25,000 had gone to my mother's account. From my mother's account, I could not see where it went, but I had enough. I had more than enough. I called my parents on a Sunday evening. Not my mother, not my father. Both of them. A 3-way call. My father answered first, then my mother joined. I need to tell you something, I said, and I need you to listen before you respond. Emily, my mother started. I called the hospital, I said. Silence. The billing department, I said. I identified myself as a family member who had contributed to the medical costs. They told me the insurance covered everything, that there was no outstanding balance, no gap payment required. The silence that followed was the longest of the conversation. I want to understand, I said, where the $25,000 went. My father said nothing. My mother said, Emily, it's complicated. It isn't, I said. Money either went to a hospital bill or it didn't. The hospital says it didn't, so I'd like to know where it went. Another silence. Marcus needed help, my father said. With what? I said. He was in a difficult situation, my mother said. We didn't know how to ask you directly. So you invented a medical emergency, I said. Neither of them denied it. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment. Not just anger. Something more complicated. The specific grief of a person who has discovered that the people they love without condition used that love as a mechanism. They had known, my parents, that I would not hesitate.
They had known because they knew me, and they had used what they knew to construct a story that would bypass every reasonable question I might otherwise ask. Medical emergency. 2 words that had removed my ability to pause, that had made hesitation feel like a failure of love. They had known that, and they had done it anyway. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. My parents waited. Did Marcus know where the money was coming from? A long pause. Yes, my father said. Did he know how you were getting it? Another pause. We told him there was a family member who could help, my mother said. Did he know it was me? The longest pause. Yes, my father said. I told them 3 things. The first, I wanted the money returned. Not immediately, I understood they didn't have it, but in a written, documented repayment plan that would be honored. The second, I would not be available for financial requests, from any of them, without full transparency about what the money was for and where it was going, ever again. The third, I needed time. Not forever, not permanently. Time. To sit with what had been done and decide what I was going to do with the relationship that had produced it. My mother cried. My father was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We were wrong. What we did was wrong. I don't have a better explanation than that." I know, I said, but wrong with full knowledge is different from wrong by mistake. You knew what you were doing, and you did it anyway. Yes, he said. That's what I need time to think about, I said. Marcus called 2 days later. I did not answer. He texted 3 messages, the arc of a person who starts with explanation and arrives at something closer to acknowledgement. The 3rd message said, I know there's nothing I can say. I'm sorry, Emily. I read it. Did not respond. Not yet. The repayment plan was signed 6 weeks later. My parents' attorney prepared it. Mine reviewed it. Monthly payments, a timeline, documentation. Clean, specific. The kind of agreement that should have existed before $25,000 ever left my account. I rebuilt my emergency fund. Slower this time. Different this time. Not because the money was harder to save, because I was different. The woman rebuilding it understood something the woman who had built it the first time did not. Love is not the same as trust. You can love people completely and not give access to your emergency fund without verification. You can love people completely and ask questions before you transfer $25,000. You can love people completely and still protect yourself. These things are not contradictions. They are wisdom, and it cost me $25,000 and 6 years of careful saving to learn it. But I learned it, and the woman I am now will never unlearn it.